Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, alongside you guys, getting out another episode with all these fixtures that are out for Milan right now. As you could tell, I look a little bit younger because I shaved everything off my face. Matt still looks young for however old he is these days, like 32 or something. But yeah, listen, that's as you can tell by the energy level as I'm going to be sipping my coffee throughout this one. Different week, same shit, right? I mean, here we are again. I'll get into some of the statistics I put at that short form video yesterday. There was like TikTok and Instagram on our Twitter about how Milan have been starting games in just 2025. So, anyways, how are you doing? Before we hop into this hot mess that was Milan Fiorentina.
Not too bad. Not too bad these days. Um, just I don't know. The football has taken so much life
Hey,
out of
our
it.
baseball teams are off to fun starts.
Yeah.
So
So I
I
mean, I
had
don't know.
a and also unironically, this Milan Fiorentina game was not the worst like sports game that I had to root and support for on Saturday. My Duke Blue Devils like had one of the biggest choke jobs in recent memory. Basically, it's not Istanbul level, but holy shit, was I getting PTSD? That was a nightmare. But anyway, speaking of PTSD and common occurrences, Milan fell behind early against Fiorentina 2-0 within this one. Um, I mean, it's just right from the get go. Kind of when we saw the lineup released, or when I saw it, I didn't know your initial thoughts. I had seen Musa thrusted back into the lineup after his suspension, after just really his lull of play. Almost every single time he's been taking the pitch recently, I feel like Conceição did him a disservice by starting him in this one. Um, I was really kind of disappointed by him in putting him into this position. I think Musa sort of needs to get minutes here and there. Him starting off matches, it just seems like he has a propensity to struggle, make poor decisions, and he made a really bad play within the start of this match that gets him hooked at the 25th minute. I actually really feel bad for him at this point. That's the second time that we've seen this happen where Conceição subs him off within the first half because the play is so poor. What is your kind of takeaway from that? And just his start? Because I mean, it was really another instance in which Milan makes such a horrendous, terrible individual error that allows the opponent to score a goal and start off early with a lead. And that's exactly what happened here against Fiorentina with this first goal.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's any surprise or any shock to anyone that the way Moose has been playing, I think there's a lot of tension and a lot of tense
Nerves.
feelings around his play. I think from a personal level, again, we're not, seeing this player on a day-to-day basis. We're not having dialogue or conversation like the players are and the coaches are and the staff are. So we don't get the full picture. But I think the way he's playing is it's alarming, especially more so for a fact that this is a player that's been given substantial amount of minutes this year. This isn't the
Yes.
same conversation we were having last year, where this was a player that, okay, he wasn't starting consistently enough. He was in and out of the team. He was getting more predominantly bench minutes and the occasional start. So it's kind of difficult to dictate where along in the process of growth is he. But I think this year, I think under multiple coaches, we've seen specifically Sergio Conceição really since he arrived. Musa's been getting a lot of opportunity, and the fact that we're still seeing a lot of these sort of lapses and big moments from him, when even from the start, where
Right.
I think it's pretty understanding of the times and where we're at in the season, where a player that is producing these types of performances is still getting starting nods, and I think it's just kind of indicative of where Milan's at currently in the midfield department, where they're latching on and grasping for certain things, and they're trying to get some semblance of consistency. And as you mentioned, Martino, very early on in this game, in that moment where Musa receives the ball and he looks like he tries to kind of dribble out of trouble and maybe move the ball to the other side, switch fields. He kind of seems very unsure of himself right now, the way he's playing,
Yes.
and I think that squandering and conceding of possession that led to the goal, I think was a clear sign of that. But also the fact that, shortly after, really 24, 25 minutes in, Sergio kind of understands when Milan are down 2-0 that obviously he has to bring on different players because he needs to maybe establish some sort of balance, but also he needs to go after the game because 2-0 down, you need to bring attackers in, you need to score goals. You can't afford to play this sort of heavily possessive type of football. And it's just really disappointing. And I think that, this isn't us trying to score points and with the Milan community that follows us, but there's been a lot of people that have come at us and Martino specifically saying, well, we're acting this sort of way towards him, or we're being racist towards the performances because if other players are playing poorly, why are you attacking Musa? We're calling it like we see it. And I think, when you see the performance he had over those 20 minutes, again, there's a lot of things wrong with this team. Make no mistake about it.
Wait till I start talking about the second goal.
But
go ahead.
It's not just a Musa thing. It's everything. But when you have moments like this where he cheaply gives away the ball, Fiorentina push forward, create a goal, and just like that, Milan are already behind the 8 ball. I think it lends some sort of credibility to what we're saying and our assessment of Yunus Musa and his season as we've been seeing it. So we're not here. I'm going to say it. We've said it before. We're going to say it again. We're not here for agendas. We're judging the performances of the players, of the entire group, that the coach, the club, as we see things unfold. And I think that it's a pretty good indication of where Yunus Musa is at, because I'd like to think he's a better footballer and he knows what to do in those situations, and he's a little bit more sure of himself, which right now we're not seeing.
Yeah, that's the standard of playing at Milan. It's really difficult. It's really difficult. Not a lot of players are capable of doing it, and a player like him who needs to develop is consistently making mistakes. It's going
starting level starting player at Milan.
It's bad. And I'd like to think that if someone like Loftus-Cheek was around, I don't think Musa starts in this one, but lo and behold. Yeah. Anyways, talking about supposed agendas. Listen, this was a 2-0 deficit. I will tell you right now, if any person wants to sit there and make excuses for number 19 anymore, please don't talk to me. Please do not talk to me. Theo Hernandez, by all accounts, this season has been Milan's worst player. And when I say that, I'm talking about relative to expectations and what people should be asking and hoping from him, in his prime. This is utterly, again, one of the most pathetic displays. Let's get into the leadership side of this, right? We're talking about how bad his mental lapses are, where Dodo is not even covered on the far post. And then again, Kane completely unmarked. Tomori, Chow. I will not get on Chow for the own goal. I think it's ridiculous. I think he was put in a really bad position for that one. Him and Tomori on the second goal here with Kane, the communication is just laughable. I mean, to have, again, one of the best scorers in the league this season, pretty much open for a tap-in, pretty much sums up everything in terms of how they get undressed. And that's just on this goal. I also want to speak on it further with these antics, where everyone, I'm sure by now, has seen the clip where Theo and Dodo, or basically the both of them, right? This isn't, I'm not a Fiorentina supporter, so I don't really care. But with him and Dodo are going back and forth, it'll be funny in 5 years. But today, I'm still pissed. These guys are going back and forth, like arguing while there's a match going on. Like they're literally playing and they're chirping at each other. And you could say from Fiorentina's perspective, this is great. This is exactly what you want in terms of instigating a player to where they're not focused. And to the point that they're playing so poorly that you're able to get ahead like that. Milan were also very fortunate that Dodo's goal was offside, which could have been the winner. They were also very fortunate on their Ranieri non-goal that ended up being a foul inside the box for Milan. There were so many different instances in which Milan were able to get away with a draw here. And there's other details that we can get into. But for me, again, like we talk and hold Yunus Musa accountable for standards of having mental lapses and having these moments of where you're just like, you're not good enough to be here right now. Theo Hernandez, we say this on like a weekly basis. This is okay, couple of stretches of layout where you're really disappointed in his form. There was a moment in this match where he should have shot it. You mentioned it. And he didn't tuck it away. Milan could have won if he would have been doing that. But he was still having a good match. He was having good actions, just like he did against Inter. He's playing generally well from what you ask from him. I cannot say the same about Theo Hernandez here. I really can't. And the defensive responsibilities, I'm sorry, are more important than what he's producing offensively, which is very inconsistent offensively. Defensively, like, it's one thing if you get shredded by Messi or a great player. He's not even marking the guy that's the only player around him. He's not even close to doing that. He's watching the ball. Like, they're so fundamentally, amateurly pathetic mistakes. Like, it's inexcusable. You're talking about supposedly the heir to Maldini. The only reason he's mentioned in the same breath as Maldini is because he scored goals and Maldini recruited him. That's the only reason why people link the two names. Otherwise, it's a complete, and I'm not even trying to be rude here, it's a fucking slap in the face to ever compare this guy to Paolo Maldini. Like, truly, from a leadership standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, and yeah, basically those two main ones, because Theo on his day is a terrific offensive fullback. I am so sick of this that I'm sorry. It's one thing if like Theo is struggling in certain manners, but he's showing effort, he's showing drive, he's doing a great job in leadership responsibility. Get your head out of your ass. Stop arguing with players who are outplaying you, and do what's best for the club, and that's play well. I'm so sad that I have to say I'm sick and done with this guy. I'm done with it. Like, it's just, there's the door. If there's a contract extension, they keep him, he stays. I'm going to be completely indifferent about it. But if this guy leaves, you won't even see me be an ounce of upset over this, because it's boiled over to this point where this is one of the worst leaders that I've seen in terms of like expectations. If you were told, and you know this prior to the year, that Theo Hernandez was the worst leader for the team this season, he was a disaster defensively, and that's off the back of last season. We're not even talking about the Champions League crash out, all the other antics from earlier in the year. Both matches against Fiorentina, Matt, and I know I'm rambling at this point because I'm so annoyed by this. If you just look at the two matches against Fiorentina this year, that's enough to bench somebody. It really is. Like, to say, you're sitting down, Davide Bartesaghi, we have a handful of matches left in Serie A. It's your turn. Have a go. See what you could do. Maybe you could produce something. To me, I am so disappointed in this player. Like, I haven't been in, man, I don't know, years, dude. I can't even remember the last time I've had such expectations for someone who's fallen so flat and so pathetically while doing so. For me, Theo Hernandez is just that sort of player. And it's disappointing because he should have been far greater than what he is right now.
Yeah, I mean, this was a player too that coming into the season, he was subject of not a transfer, an extension, right? I know there were talks last year or last summer, when there was the what was it, the Euro, and there was a lot of conversation about his future, and there was talks of like multiple clubs and whatever. And obviously, it seemed as though that heading into the season, yeah, he just came off a pretty difficult one. But I think the general belief and feeling amongst Milan fans was, all right, well, I think this player's still in the prime of his career. He's proven that he can be someone that maybe is a candidate for the captaincy, although, of course, we see Mike Maignan as the captain right now after Calabria left. Sure. But I think what this season has shown us about Theo is he's a fine player on his day. He's represented Milan for the most part pretty well over the past couple of years. It's been pretty poor. We can agree on that. But I think he's had some great highs with this team. Yes. But I think it's pretty obvious that it feels as though that kind of marriage is done between Milan and Theo. And I think that what fans were hoping for at this part of the at certain parts of the season, excuse me,
Hmm.
was when all this talk of Tijani, Pulisic, Magnon, all these guys getting new deals, that Theo would be in that sort of conversation, because it seemed as though that they were looking to play ball together, and they were looking to come to an agreement. Obviously, there was differences on the wage, but I think rather than stepping up to the plate and elevating his game, showing leadership in what has been a dreadful season for Milan, being one of the veteran guys, and that those sorts of presences that you need in delicate moments like this, he's regressed. He's not leading. I can almost, in a strange way,
Yeah.
like, cope and deal and tolerate with a player that's just underperforming, but at least he's being a leader. Like, if a player's struggling, I can at least say, well, he's trying, and he's leading. He's leading by example. Like, for example, like Simon Kjaer, perfect example. Towards the tail end of his
Yeah.
Milan career, the injuries, he was in and out of the team. He wasn't getting a lot of minutes, and when he did play, he wasn't that great, but you could still see he had that presence around the group, and he can still galvanize the group in a way that's not on the field. With Theo, you're not seeing it. This is a player that, in my opinion, because he knows that he's probably not going to sign on past 2026, he might even run down his contract, or he might move in the summer. He's checked out, in my opinion. The season's been a joke on both for him and for the team. They crashed out in miserable fashion by his own accord, by his own, he was playing a big part in that against Feyenoord. And on top of that, he hasn't played a string of really strong football in the past year and a half, 2 years. If you're just objectively looking at this as a Milan fan, and I know that we all have our affinity towards a lot of these players, because we know on Theo's day he can be a top player. We've sung his praises many times, where we are saying this is the best left back in football. We've had heated debates, and we stood our ground for Theo in the conversation of Theo versus DeMarco, Theo versus this player, Theo versus that player on many occasions. But at some point, when you see 2 seasons of regression, both in attitude, in character, in play, at some point, I think Milan fans have to come to grips with the reality that Theo probably needs to move on. Now, whether or not they're going to get someone that is capable of doing the same things when Theo is at his best, it's a whole different conversation. Because the truth of the matter is this: what's going to happen is Theo's going to leave, potentially, and most likely, this summer, and people are going to say, well, we should have kept him. We should have tried to extend him if he goes somewhere else and plays well. All things come to an end. All things come to an end. It happens in football. It happens in life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think fans need to come to grips with, because things like this on the weekend were indicative of how bad the relationship is between fans, Theo, and Milan, and how fractured it is, probably beyond repair at this point. With 7 games left, I mean, even if he has a really good performance in the Copa second leg against Inter,
this is only saving grace.
But I don't even know, truthfully, if that's even enough for him to salvage his career at Milan. Like, at the end of the day, I just don't know.
Well, before we move on real quick, I guess I'll just ask you the question then, because I've thought about it too, where it's like, sure, we could all look badly, and maybe he redeems himself and whatever. And also to the extent that we don't know who the new sporting director is, so I think that still plays a key part in all of this, and who the manager would be. Because I'll get into Conceição in a second too. I think I'm very disappointed in him. Theo, basically, in my opinion, the only way he could somewhat save himself is if he has world-class performances against Inter to get to the Coppa Italia final, and then he has another great cup final this year where he does a great job, and they were to beat it, knock on wood, if they were to get there, Bologna most likely. You can kind of salvage some of it, but we know how disastrous the season has been. Is there any way, in your opinion, that this is a salvageable situation where Theo Hernandez can end up staying with Milan past 2025?
I mean, there is a possibility, because I think that reportedly Milan tried to sell him in January. Como came up with a pretty big offer, and I think there were some legs to that report? I thought it was
It was that Milan agreed and Theo didn't want to leave. And
correct.
Theo doesn't want to leave, and I think a lot of people are thinking that Theo is using leverage for contract negotiations in the summer, or if he were to move somewhere else. Like, he doesn't want, if he wants to move, he's not going to move from Milan to Como, right?
Correct.
Like, it's very close in proximity. It's still a step down massively. Regardless of what they would end up paying him, he probably wants to take a leap forward. Like, there's been links to Real Madrid. Like, you don't think Real Madrid are going to be sitting there like, oh, Theo Hernandez is available for like 40 million. We're Real Madrid. We could do that. We're signing Trent on a free. Like, sorry to cut you off, but
No.
continue with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there is a reality where Milan and Theo see this current contract out, which expires in 2026. And I think that you can look at this in multiple ways, right? Because I think that, a common criticism of Milan and their transfer dealings and their handlings of extensions over recent years, as well, they let players' contracts run down, and then they put themselves in a bind where they can't sign them. Gigio, Hakan, Kessie, to name but a few.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you run the risk of a player like Theo, and in a strange way, this would almost kind of be like worst case, in my opinion. And you tell me if I'm kind of stupid in saying this. I think the worst case scenario for Milan is Theo stays and he says, I want to stay, I want to finish out my contract. And he has a great final year. He leaves for free. And then management gets absolutely shredded and ripped apart for letting yet another player leave on a free transfer.
Which is really funny because it's
what in a strange way, it's almost
they said they sacked the last guy for it. Ultimately, what I think will happen, I see where you're coming from. Ultimately, okay, so it's really tough without the sporting director and new manager, right?
Because we don't really know.
Tossing up these hypotheticals, I think there's like a chance he does stay and extend. I think part of it is willingness on his end, and I think the other part is it is leverage. It is leverage because he's still very talented, and there's people out there that think this and would also say, hey, he's just saying this so he could go to another big club. Another club could be like, well, you know what? Milan are actually a disaster. Him stinking and not being that good is a little bit more of a reflection of the club than Theo himself as a whole. Even though I think it's a combination of both, right? I think Theo is a part of why Milan are stinking, and Milan stinking is a part of why Theo has been exposed, because the midfield stinks, blah, blah, blah. There's so much more nuance to it. We could do a separate topic on that. I just think that they're going to force him out in the summer because they don't want to lose someone for free. If he doesn't extend, then they're going to force him out. There's just no doubt. They've already tried to force him out in January. They don't want to lose an asset in their minds for free. They're just not doing that. And it's going to end badly, like sort of like a really bad relationship where there's stuff from Theo's end coming out that's not great. There's going to be stuff coming from the club's end that's not great. I think that's possible. But we'll see what a new director, and I have zero faith in this club right now, okay? But I'm just saying, keep an open mind somewhat, even though I'm very reluctant to. Have to wait to see what the sporting director and the new manager will be like and what that situation will unfold. But there were some positives in this one. Not really. Tammy Abraham, listen, good job. He's producing. Can't say anything negative there. This was a really good link-up play for this one to get Milan back into this. Again, just another really frustrating match. Should I read off some of the statistics to our podcast listeners that maybe have not seen the video in which I was talking about this? I was discussing with Ali Fisher, and this is everything that's been very upsetting with Sergio Conceição and exactly why he's not going to be renewed. In Serie A, since Conceição had taken over, so this is all in 2025, strictly in the Serie A competition. 9 out of the 14 times Milan's opponent had scored first. So they're starting off with a deficit in 9 of 14 matches. 6 times they came back for a result. They had 4 wins and 2 draws. Okay? Then 2 times they've been down 2-0. They come back to get a result. 1 win and 1 draw. One of those wins was against Lecce, where they went down 2-0. And then this one over the weekend, where they end up getting a draw. could have done that against Napoli as well. They're very close to doing it. Could have been 3 separate occasions with that. Unsustainable, frustrating. You read the comments from Tijani Reinders on how it's mind-boggling on how they put themselves in these positions where they're in a deficit, and it's because of the most embarrassing type of goal concessions. Again, I know sort of the topic here with Tammy is like we can't feel positively about offensive actions because of what they do defensively. Like Milan should have won this game. Seriously, like again, if you're saying like Milan with their standards, with how they're supposed to be playing defense, this should never happen. The goals they conceded should never exist. And they're laughably bad, embarrassing. Pulisic, good assist here. Tammy, the finish is great. They got back into this, and pretty much after that, momentum was kind of back and forth, and Milan had a better feel throughout the entire match. Do you want to speak on Tammy's goal before we move on to our super sub again?
Yeah, I mean, I think look, it's we don't know what the future holds for Tammy at Milan. This is for those that are not yet still aware. It was a dry loan between Milan and Roma for Alexis Salamakers and Tammy Abraham. He has pretty high wages, so I don't anticipate Milan keeping him on a permanent basis, carrying those wages. Having said all that, I think it does speak to the character of Tammy Abraham and the way he's carrying himself as a professional at this club, because I think it's pretty obvious that Sergio Conceição is desperate for results. He's desperate for goal production at this position, and you saw that this weekend, right, where he could have played Santiago Menez. He played Tammy Abraham. Santiago Menez comes in for Tammy Abraham, gets injured. Their third striker, the outcast of the entire team for pretty much the entire season after he was given the number 9 shirt, and Luka Jovic, he gets the equalizer, his second goal in as many games. So you're almost looking at this and thinking like, this is kind of the delicate nature of the role. And I'm not saying by any means that we should be giving up on Santiago Jimenez. This season has been an utter train wreck. I still like the player. I'm still happy we brought the player in. I still like the player for the fee that we brought him in for. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point of the season that you got to get someone that can just put the ball in the back of the net. I don't care if it's another 70 million signing or someone you got off the scrap heap unemployment line. You got to get goals. And right now, Tammy Abraham and Luka Jovic are the ones that are producing goals. Those two players could potentially be out this summer and not even in the conversation, which again, it speaks to the inconsistencies of the collective group this year, with the exception of very few. And dare I say, you could probably only, can you name a player that's been consistent from start to finish this year? I can't.
No. That's what I've said. I said it last episode. I think
it's this the way that this position has produced or not produced is yet another indicator of what has been a turbulent, unpredictable, and unreliable season for Milan from many of their players. Because you look at this team on paper, you look at the fact that you got guys like Jovic as like your third striker, and you're like, okay, like as a third striker, this guy is a player that
it's prime.
He could probably start or at least be a reliable backup for a lot of teams in Serie A. Down the table, of course, but you get the point. Yeah. And this is a player that has been an outcast, and yet he's the one scoring goals, and he looks like he's more motivated and more into the game than some of our mainstays. So it's like, I think that it's Sergio is the way he's handled certain relationships and substitutions and usage of players has been very shocking to me. I thought that when he came in, again, just throwing the Super Cup high aside, the initial bounce.
Sure.
I thought he would be someone, based on the way that Rafa spoke about him and several players within this team spoke about him when he came in, that the relationship, these guys would be tight. Like he would kind of get that part of the team down.
Yeah, when you see him have his arm around Theo Hernandez in the huddle.
I thought that at this point, and I'm not saying that the players hate him, but like to get back to my main point, it's like
there's friction.
not that there's friction. It's just there's so much uncertainty, and when you have that sort of relationship with your coach, where like you're the striker, now he's like, okay, I'm having a difficult go, and I'm not playing. Now I'm not going to get opportunities. Now this is not going to happen. So I just think again, like it's tough to speak so much on how certain players are performing. Am I going to change my tune on Tammy and say we should keep this guy? I don't know. Like if the conversation
The
is
wages are really
the
high. I
wages are
think we
high,
had someone in our
but I
comments.
will say
Yeah.
this though, at least as a player, that the way he speaks about Milan, the way he kind of represents himself as a Milan player, and the fact that when he has been called upon, he's at least put in some passion, some spirit. He's given us something, whether it's off the bench or starting. And I just want to commend him for that because I'm not seeing it from a lot of players within this team. When they're losing games, when they're dropping points, it's hanging head. But this seems like a player that's at least kind of
Well,
motivated.
it's big club experience. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, he was at Chelsea. He was a part of the squad that ended up winning the Champions League. Like he's been there, trained in Cobham. I mean, like I thought he did a good job. Just to speak on Jovic really quick before we move on to the Udinese preview and just wrap up here. What he's doing, I think, needs to be applauded to a level. I know the Jovic Twitter account is just like
A little over
it's
the top.
nothing against the guy,
Yeah.
but like he just makes Jovic like insufferable, and Jovic doesn't even say anything as a player. But my point is that it's really, really, really difficult to do what he's done recently. I know it's just 2 goals. I know it's like sort of minimal, but it's or you got the assist, excuse me, in the other fixture. Like Jovic producing like this, it's hard. And I got to give him his respect for it. His father has commented recently, like he has multiple options, like he could come back or stay at Milan next year. Again, don't want to get ahead of ourselves because of this director. And even it looks like Paratici is not going to be an option at this moment in time too. So it's just a funny lowdown on how everything's going. For me, listen, good job. Good job. I like honestly saved our ass. Jovic, in general, when he's come off the bench for Milan, he's his entire tenure at the club, getting the number 9 shirt aside, has been, a super sub. That's really what he's been. He's come in, saved PLE's ass, God knows how many times, along with Noah Okafor. And he's done it again so far. I think he deserves more minutes at this point. I think you're right. Santi Jimenez probably going to have to take a back seat. Maybe towards the end of the season, last match or two, take your time. Santi also got subbed off in this one. He looked like he got hurt. De Gea made an insane tackle, like the tackle of his career on that one.
Yeah, of
I
course.
felt kind of
This
bad
is
for Santi. I think he handled it a little poorly. But hey, listen, shout out to Jovic for that. Any final thoughts on that before we move on to the preview?
No, I think Sergio's in a position. I think Milan are in a position where they're gonna have to go with guys that can get them goals. And I'm curious to see if Sergio looks at this moment and says, okay, is Santiago in the right mindset? Is in the right headspace to start games for me consistently? Is he more uh, effective for me coming off the bench? And maybe it's a lot of the psychological that is playing into Santiago's kind of recent decline because he started off pretty well. But this is
Yeah.
something that you and I discussed, right? When Santiago came to Milan, we were like, okay, he got the one goal, I think, I forgot who it was against, but he got
He
the
scored
left-footed
against
goal.
Empoli.
Empoli, and we were like, okay, and he got the header goal that Rafa set him up in like the newer off-white jerseys, right? So he had a pretty good start, but I was like, guys, like there's gonna be a moment this season where he goes and he struggles and he's suffering in terms of his play. You got to just take that with the role, and that's I think what we're doing right now. So get players up there that can score goals. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
And I think when you have an understanding of who the coach is going to be, the sporting director, the way you're going to play football, then I think we can make more of a deeper assessment on where we see Santiago Menez fitting into this club long term.
Yeah. Definitely. We'll see what happens. I think that they both deserve praise for how they've handled the situation as strikers, Tammy and Jovic. And again, we'll see what Santiago has in the coming months. Okay. Milan's non-bogey team, Udinese. Last time they played them, I was at San Siro. Very lucky to come away with a win in that one. Chukwueze had the only goal of that match. Milan basically led an equalizer, but was ruled out. I believe it was offside or a foul in stoppage time for this. Udinese sit 10th, right behind Milan with this. Listen, this one's on Friday, away. Bro, I don't know. I had us getting a win in this one in that lowdown. Milan getting a win against Udinese is usually surprising, which is always very funny. Listen, I personally would like to see some other players get a run here. In terms of like Tammy, get Jovic in there. Does Chukwueze get some more minutes? Are we able to see a newer midfielder? Does Warren Bondo get a bigger piece of the pie here in terms of how much of a run he gets within this match? Does Davide Bartesaghi see a feature there? Does Florenzi sort of like get back into the fold? Does he get some minutes? Because Kyle Walker, I mean, we glossed over Kyle Walker's been so poor that he's not even worth addressing at this point. I think he's done a really bad job. To say, you know, we got to hold other guys accountable. For me here with the Udinese preview, expectations are minimal. I don't know. For me, like I've said, with these final matches here, don't embarrass ourselves any further. Give some of the young guys a good run of form. I got nothing else. I really don't. Rafa, heat up maybe. Pulisic, keep adding to those stats. Same with Reinders. Whatever, bro. Like we're ninth. We're not close. We had more teams draw against each other where Milan, again, could have had an advantage to chop back in even further. Is what it is. What do you expect? What are you hoping for? If you have any hopes whatsoever, I don't think you do.
I mean, I went reluctantly last week. I went win for Milan in our prediction, and there was any. I looked like I got my face when they went down 2-0. They tied it, which again, you can't consider that a win. Even reversing a 2-0 deficit is not a win. So
I agree with you.
Again, no disrespect to Fiorentina, but even if it's against a good Fiorentina team, like, come on.
I agree.
I think Milan tied this game 1-1.
Okay.
I think Luca gets a goal. I think
Okay.
Milan are going to have trouble containing him. He's a presence in the box. He's, 6'7". This is a guy that I think is going to give our central defenders problems. I think Udinese are going to look his way early and often through Tauvin and some of the other players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be more the same as far as expectations are concerned, right? I think that we're past the point of, hoping, anticipating, kind of praying for Milan to turn a corner and to get round into some good
They're
form.
so good.
It's the same problems. Like, I'm watching the game last weekend against Fiorentina, and I'm like this, they haven't figured it out defensively at all this year. Like, at all. Like, they haven't looked like any, light bulb has went off in their head and like, I know how to defend now. I know how to do my job again. None of these players. None of them.
Yeah.
Mike Maignan has been very strong and has looked more reminiscent of Mike Maignan of old.
He had a
The
really
past
good
couple
match.
weeks.
He had a
Right,
really
he had
good
a very
match
good match.
against
Him and De
Fiorentina.
Gea were the clear stars of that game on the weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
With all that being said, I think this game reeks of a 1-1 draw. Udinese get a goal. This is a team that historically, at least in recent years, Milan have had really difficult times breaking down. Udinese don't have anything really to play for. They're meddling in the middle of the table. I think this is a match for them, like it has been for many of Milan's recent opponents, bar Napoli, because obviously they have bigger fish to fry at the top of the table. Oh man, let's see if we can kind of send Milan further spiraling. Let's see if we can get Milan yet on another bad day where they don't have anything defensively, they don't have any solutions in the midfield, and they're still struggling to get consistency up front. And I think that's what Milan are going to continue to suffer the rest of the way, and we're going to head into the summer market, waiting to see what the rest of the manager looks like, the management, and so on and so forth. But for this game, I'm going 1-1.
Yeah, listen, man, I think that for me, whatever, right? Like I like genuinely, I want to see like a Bartezagi in here, have like a good shift. I want to just see a youngster that we can get in, do well. That's all. And probably not because Milan Futuro need everybody at this point. They've got a couple wins. They're outside of that automatic relegation zone within Serie
Mhm.
C. I think that's kind of worth mentioning. Um, any other things in general topics that I think could just be brought up? Kudos to us. Kudos to the fans. Number one in Serie A attendance this year. 71,643 people on average showing up to Milan matches in one of the worst seasons ever in the past like 30 years, right? The fact that everyone up in Italy is showing up, to our Italian listeners, anyone who's
Hasn't
made
given
it,
up, even though it looks as though many times this team has given up. Yeah,
this
and
is
quite a
how
few.
could anyone ever like deny like what this fan base does like from a supporting standpoint. It's incredible to me. I think all of us deserve so much more for sticking through with all of this. Through no club has had more turbulent times that are this big. I'm sorry. There's nothing that you could look. United have been consistently shit, right? Inter have turned the corner. Everyone knows that.
Mhm.
Juve went off on one of the greatest like runs in Serie A history in the 2010s. No team as the size of Milan have gone from great to great to shit again in a short time span. And the fans have been there through it all. And I just want to say, you guys are great. Your support for us here on the podcast has been great. Despite all the negatives that have been going on, we really appreciate every single one of you on a consistent basis showing up week in, week out. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment your thoughts on the video. We appreciate and see everything that you guys comment. Don't forget to subscribe to our other channel at That Milan Pod. The link is in the description for that one. Apple, Spotify podcast. Give us 5-star ratings. Give us your reviews there on what you think about it. Again, Milan Coast to Coast, Milan Weekly Podcast, MLM Podcast, Old Hard Rossonero, Me Marco, Milan Fan TV, Sempre Milan, who always do an amazing job. Just again, all of you and Kush, all you great, phenomenal Milan content creator, all you great Milan fans that are always so nice to us, that always do a great job of supporting us through thick and thin over the course of 8 years now, or however fucking long it's been at this point. We really just appreciate it. It's fun times for us. Matt and I just, we appreciate that you guys
We do.
understand how often and difficult it is for us to juggle this entire recording and podcasting thing. Matt's been busy. I'm busy. We have opposite schedules for the most part. So the fact that you guys have been here through it all with us, again, we just appreciate it. We really just do. Again, hopefully better times around the corner. We will see you next week. Other than that, Matt, any other final comments?
Yeah, I just want to give a special shout out to all the supporter clubs, not just in the US, but Canada, around the world, that consistently are getting people to come out to support this club. You know,
Yes.
coming out to the bar, coming out to the cafe to get a drink, to get something to eat, but the community, right? Getting the community together constantly on match days, despite how difficult the season has been. Um, AC Milan Club New York, they do a fantastic job. I've known them for, I want to say, more than a decade. I think 2012 when we met up at MetLife. It was Milan Club New York, Milan Club Philly, and that's when the first time I actually
That
met
was
a lot of
back
these
when they were
guys.
like New York, New Jersey.
New York, New Jersey, and that's when me and my
Yeah.
brother first started our Milan account. So I've known a lot of these guys for many years
Yeah.
on a personal level. I've seen them get married, have kids, all these sorts of things. Their families grow, and they're still, making that effort to get people out on the weekend to watch this club, despite the results and the dire times. So, just want to give a quick tip of the cap and shout out to all the supporter clubs and what they do to consistently keep this Milan energy, this community intact, but also growing, because it's not easy. It's people do, and I've seen it. People on Twitter saying, why do I'm not watching this team anymore. I'm not even watching the game. I'm turning it off. And it's when you have a busy schedule like Martino and I and many others have, it's easy to say, you know what, I'm not dedicating 90 minutes on a weekend. I'm spending time with this person or doing this or doing that. I'm not watching this team until they figure it out. So just want to kind of give everyone their flowers for sticking by this club and sticking by us.
Yeah, absolutely. No other further comments needed. We appreciate you guys so much. So take care.